Hi, everyone. My name is Lydia Martinez. I am the founder and CEO of L Marketing and Events, and I am here today with my good friend Sam, who is with the Other Side Village. Sam, how are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. It's great to be here with you.
Amazing. Delighted to be here with you as well. The Other Side Village, we've been working on this project now for almost a year. And tell us a little bit about what the village is and what it is that you're working to accomplish, because I think it's really groundbreaking.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, really excited to share our message a little bit. So, I'll just kind of give our mission statement. What we have laid out is that our goal, our purpose for being, is to create a self reliant, peer led village that provides a safe, dignified, and uplifting life for those who've been chronically unsheltered, and which brings them into the larger community and to mutually ennobling relationships. So, a really fancy way of saying create a community that provides the supportive services needed for people who are coming out of difficult, traumatic situations, and make sure that they're attached to the larger community and that they're not isolated, that they're actually able to join the larger community.
And that I think is the key, that this is as much about community building for people that have experienced catastrophic loss of family and community. You know,
Absolutely.
um, the thing that I've learned as I've been working with the Other Side Village and really telling their story and their messaging is that, people don't become homeless because they are lazy or because they have issues or because they don't want to work. The root cause is so much deeper. What is that root cause as we've gone through our discovery?
Yeah, well, you touched on it right there. I mean, we like to say, because we think really community is the central point to healing and to creating those kind of social safety nets and those connections that allow for long-term change. We like to say that it's a catastrophic loss of family. That one of the things that really separates those that are on the streets from you and I is that, when I've made serious mistakes in my life, I had support around me to help me pick up the pieces, to provide me the resources I needed and give me opportunities. What we find a lot with those on the streets is that they just lacked those connections and those resources. Of course, it becomes a more complicated picture with things like housing and different behavioral problems, but really at the root of it is usually a lack of real robust support, social support.
Not having any type of safety net, not having any type of close family or friend bonds, not having somebody to turn to when something bad happens.
Yeah. Yep. Usually a catastrophic event, something was severely traumatizing. Oftentimes, there's a huge percentage of just chronic mental illness on the streets. And so it's not even one catastrophic event, it's multiple. And with mental illness, oftentimes if it goes untreated, it becomes more and more severe. And so you actually just have an exacerbation of problems because there isn't the resources to provide an alternative.
Yeah. So we started working with the Other Side Village, like I said, almost a year ago. And one of the things that became clear right off the bat is that we had to find ways to communicate that the Other Side Village and what your organization is trying to build and accomplish is different than just providing blanket housing or a housing voucher or something like that
Mhm.
for people that are transitioning out of homelessness. What's the difference?
Great question. So I think that you're underselling how many challenges you faced in taking on our marketing, but that was one of them most definitely. The difficulty is communicating the complexity of our organizational structure. We're not, like you said, just a single housing solution. We're actually providing a really complex set of interlocking services, including at the very heart of the model, our peer accountability model. That's really about individual empowerment and skill growth. And I think that's something that is so, I don't want to say so uncommon, but it's a unique approach in the existing service provision space. And so I think that was a real challenge to try to figure out how you take this complex idea and move it into different mediums. Really explain that what we're doing is a little more detailed.
So it's not just housing, it is peer accountability, it's creating community, it's creating systems um, for people to have stability. It's those wraparound homeless services, so medical services, mental health support, as well, kind of all in one location.
Yeah.
Which again, and you touched earlier on how a lot of times it's multiple things that people have challenges with when they're homeless. It's mental illness and
Mhm.
addiction and no community, no family. And most homeless services, they're designed to fix one thing: housing or mental, like they work with
Yeah.
people that have mental health, or they work with people that have addiction, but they don't work with the whole complex person. And that, I think, is something else that really sets the village apart. One of the things that I always will that we also worked with very, very early on was communicating to the neighborhood and community where the village will likely be located. So what were some of the challenges with that? Because we definitely got some pushback.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we were arm in arm going through that whole thing. I can say very confidently we would not be where we were today without L marketing, without the robust amount of support that was provided across pretty much every outreach avenue that we engaged in. So gratitude there and compliments for work well done. I think right off the bat, there's two big challenges that we face. One, just generally because of what's happened in Salt Lake City recently, and another because of the location that we're hoping for. The first is that there was this big, brutal battle over homeless resource centers a few years ago, and that's stuck in everyone's mind. It was messy, it was nasty. There was a lot of interpersonal awfulness, and that has just really cemented in people's mind what homeless services looks like and what the public comment period is going to feel like. And so I think our whole initial push was just to try to convince people to give us a chance and understand that this is not a homeless resource center. Those are very important. They have to exist in the service provision system. They play a really important role, but they also come with a set of problems for the neighborhood that they join that we're convinced will not come with our project. But that's exactly what people are picturing. So we had to work really hard on messaging and on content creation to make sure that we were thorough in showing that there is this alternative model, and that really what we're doing is it's not homeless services, it's housing people. And when somebody joins the village, they're a housed person who has access to robust services. So that was an initial challenge. And then, of course, we're hoping to join the West Side, a wonderful neighborhood that we believe that we can provide some meaningful amenities for. But at the same time, the West Side is really used to having what feel like problem projects dumped on them and stuck in. And that's something that the community has really spent some time starting to organize against and try to have a real conversation about. And so really early on, what we had to do is get as many people into the academy as possible and into open houses and things like that, so that we could give them really show them that we're going to work differently with them than other types of service providers that have joined the West Side. I think those two hand in hand were extraordinary challenges.
Well, and one of the other things with that is proving that we're listening. That we aren't just paying lip service to listening to the community, but actually really taking the input. So one example was, there's a component to the village that will be, public shops, uh, you know, food, restaurants, things like that. Um, and we literally started asking the community, what do you want to see? I mean, this area is a food desert. First of all, there's not a lot of like just grocery stores in this area. And that was one of the number one
Mhm.
things that people asked for. They asked for a farmer's market situation or a community garden. They talked about places for food trucks or other things where they could actually purchase food. Um, and so that's kind of unique in one of the ways that we worked with the community. The other thing that I think is really unique about the village and working with the community and providing services and things like that for the community is that there will be a social entrepreneurism component to the
Yeah.
village. Let's talk about that and how we've been messaging that and starting just now to communicate that to the public.
Yeah. Yeah, so the social entrepreneurship component is absolutely essential to our model. Skipped over a little bit when I was describing our purpose because there's so many pieces of it. But like our sister program, we will run social enterprises out of the organization, and that's to serve a number of purposes. First and foremost, it's to create opportunity for work, opportunity for employment, and really opportunity for meaning. One of the things, some of the programs that we've studied that have been successful at doing what we do, what they found early on was that regardless of who you are, you need to feel like you're engaged in meaningful work, that it's productive work, that it's not busy work for the sake of working, that you're actually doing something that you can stand behind and feel proud of. And so
You're
creating that, exactly, creating that sense of identity for the village and for all of us to rally around is just super essential. The next part of that is that it gives us not only the opportunity to pay neighbors and make sure that they can make supplemental income up to as much as they would like to make, but also to make sure that the village itself can become self-reliant. So, we will take on costs to be able to do things like build new buildings, put in infrastructure. We'll raise money for that. But ultimately, what we want and what we need to be successful is to make sure that operationally, what it costs us each year to keep our operations going is coming out of our own pockets, that we know where that's coming from, that we can count on that year after year, and that we actually have control over those resources. And so really helping people understand, I think, that the diverse benefits that are created for a community when they do engage and work together. And at the end of the day, too, work is just essential to a peer-led community. It gives people the opportunity to have interpersonal difficulty that then they have to learn how to communicate and deal with. And work is at the center of all of that.
Yes. Work has absolutely taught each and every one of us that have had that opportunity to manage interpersonal relationships.
I have learned some things, yes.
So we've all had to learn that the hard way for sure. I love that. One of the other things that we've really worked on doing with the Other Side Village is telling the stories of the people behind it,
Mm-hmm.
who they are, why they're doing this, what they feel strongly about, why they're passionate about it. And so let's maybe touch base on that just a little bit, and how we've been telling those stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. We really started, not to get too lost into our sister program, but our first program that originated in Salt Lake was in 2015, the Other Side Academy, and they have now had six and some change years of successful operation, of turning out graduates, and all of those graduates have a really unique story. They are coming from a place where their motivation for being there, and oftentimes their motivation to become things like staff and then to engage in the village, which is where we've drawn a lot of staff, is from their own personal lived experiences. And oftentimes those lived experiences are very tender and are very painful and are very sometimes confusing and hard to get into. And, working with L Marketing to bring out those stories and really create the intimacy needed for people to feel safe and vulnerable and to be able to explain what their motivations are and why they're doing what they're doing today. I think that narrative was essential to our success.
Well, and I think really painting the picture, for me, the thing that was most moving is painting the picture of how people can make that jump or cross over that bridge in kind of academy terms,
Yeah.
where, we talked to people that were addicts that had been homeless, and now have gone through a really aggressive program. They've built community, they've built friendships, they've built relationships. They're very gainfully employed. They feel like they're contributing and giving back.
Yeah.
And painting those pictures of before and after has been so critical to the story of what's to come with the village.
I couldn't agree more. And it's forecasting too, because we plan those same stories to be coming out of the village as we operate. And so it really gives us the opportunity to show people the kind of impact the village will have in the lives of our residents.
And there's some very exciting news in the past, like, 30 to 45 days, where we have started welcoming the very first neighbors,
Indeed.
that will be future residents of the village. So talk a little bit about what it is that we're working on with them right now, because they're already learning some of those principles and participating.
Yeah. So we have, the goal of the village, of course, is to make sure that every single person who enters it has the greatest chance for long-term success and for long-term thriving, for personal growth and achievement. And as we started studying other programs and thinking about how we were going to modify some of what we do in our other therapeutic community, we started realizing that there needed to be an opportunity for people to really get acculturated to how the village would function and to some of the unique mechanisms we'll use for conflict resolution, restorative justice processes. And also, of course, people coming off the streets need safety and stabilization. The very first thing they need is a place where they can actually feel safe and secure so that they can start considering other issues in their lives. You know, if you don't feel safe and you don't feel secure, there's nothing else you can work on. All you're doing every day is trying to take care of those basic needs.
You're
And so
surviving.
what'll happen is so you're surviving, exactly. And so the welcome neighborhood, what you're describing, where we actually now have neighbors who are working together and running a social enterprise, doing daily programming. What that is it's an opportunity to come in and first get safe and stabilized. If you need detox, if you need medication, we'll help you get set up on federal programs so that you can get funding if you don't have it. And then the other side of it is really learning the culture of peer accountability and the culture of restorative justice that will exist in the village. So, you know, the real core idea of the village is empowering people to hold the standards they already wish they could hold, to keep themselves safe and secure and to live in a prosperous place. And so what we're really trying to do is build in the skills and create the culture where there is an expectation that you hold accountability with your neighbor, where you know how to go into your neighborhood council and bring up concerns and deal with them and have the kind of support you need to do so. And so that's what we're doing right now, is making sure that we have a cadre of neighbors who are ready to join the village at full capacity when we actually have facilities.
You know, and the other thing that's so interesting to me, like they dove straight in and started helping with things like, you know, painting. And they have their social enterprise, which is making some really delicious cookies. I had some the other day. They were amazing.
Yes, I
Um,
love doing that.
and so it's those types of things where we're already seeing the change in these neighbors within the village.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, you know, in our studies and also in our experience at the academy, obviously this is a different kind of operation that we're running here, but we know some of the benchmarks that we were hoping to see, some of what was supposed to change as that kind of community starts rallying around people. And we've just seen example after example of that coming even faster than we thought it was going to. So one of my favorite stories that I'll share briefly is just, what the goal here is for people to feel ownership in this project, to know that they are part of it succeeding and that it will not succeed without them. And what we had is one of our newest neighbors came in to join the group. And before any of us could even talk to him, one of our freshmen, who's actually crossed over a level and has made some progress, took him aside and said, "You have no idea the amount of lives that you will change by being here today." He compared it to the Apollo mission and said, "We are on the Apollo mission and we are going to change the world. And that's only going to happen if you join us." And that's what we live for. That is the culture that will change the village and make it what we want it to be.
That's incredible. And I love hearing stories like that. And we've heard stories like that time after time. That's why it's been such an honor for me to kind of help not craft the stories, but craft the mechanism for sharing them.
Yeah.
It's been really, really incredible. So talk to me about a few other ways that we've partnered together over the past year as far as some of the marketing efforts.
I don't think there's a single marketing effort that we haven't had your input and collaboration on. I think, we were doing direct outreach. We were doing open houses and events. I think, early on you were helping us build strategy. Content creation has been almost entirely in your corner, deciding how we're targeting through social media and how to be really deliberate about where we're pointing different pieces of content. Obviously help with events, capturing assets at events and really finding, creating quality assets and distributing them appropriately. Press releases, our entire digital presence, our website, SEO. I don't think there's a thing L Marketing hasn't touched.
We've got a really talented team here that we approach from a storytelling aspect first, and then we kind of figure out the very best way to spread that far and wide. And we've loved doing that and loved partnering. Any other thoughts or tips for working with a great market, working with a really solid marketing team? Just coming from somebody from originally an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, if you got a good marketing team, listen to their damn advice. That would be my suggestion.
Excellent. I'm going to highlight that and like put it on our wall.
But yeah, for any community organization that's trying to do a project that's hard or controversial, taking seriously your marketing, your messaging, and your outreach, being deliberate, being thorough, and doing it for as long as you need to keep that presence up. I think, the investments that we've made in L marketing have borne extraordinary fruit. And like I said, we not only wouldn't be here today, we would be fighting battles that we won 6 months ago if it wasn't for your guys' help. So yeah, I would just say hire out marketing, I guess.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I did not pay Sam to say that, by the way. And the other, one of the other things when we first started meeting, you had kind of started out trying to maybe work with like a PR firm. And what was the difference in experience working with just a strict PR, like political PR firm versus working with a local team? Because I think that was something else that was unique.
Yeah, there are differences in design elements just because of the specific political part. But what we really found value in is one, the robust services that we had access to through you. So, your team includes every tool in the toolbox that we possibly needed. We weren't having to plug in different companies and search around. We actually just had a one-stop shop. Secondly, the tapping into local knowledge and local connections made all the difference. This was such an intimate type of marketing and communication need, and really thinking strategically, not just about the city, but about the neighborhoods we're joining and the differences between them, and thinking intentionally about different groups that needed to be messaged to, and be thoughtful about making sure we weren't leaving important constituencies out. I don't think we could have gotten any of that if we didn't have somebody who was really plugged in and who had such robust service offerings.
Amazing. Well, thank you. And yeah, so we did become that one stop shop with like graphic design and photography and videography and web design and development and content creation and social media and ad strategy. So we loved working with that. And it was even important for us to be able to say, let's stop by the academy. Let's tour the site of the village. Let's see what you're about. Let's really meet the people and figure out great ways to talk about them and talk to them. And that was something else that made a huge difference.
Totally agree. Yeah, we needed somebody who was really willing to get to know us, and that's what we got.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for being here today. It's been an absolutely great partnership, and we love the village. We look forward to, finding ways to partner with each other for a good long time. So thank you so much for being here today.